Good morning, everyone. Charles? Sorry, my voice is going to come in and out a little bit today, probably, but just going to get started. Not a lot of, no new announcements today. Well, one new announcement, but you saw it on Thursday. Okay, RealtorQuest is this week, Wednesday and Thursday. If you have not registered, it's your last chance. So scan that QR code. It's if you're not a member of TREB, which is nobody here, I think it's $400 or $500 a ticket. But if you're a member of TREB, it's covered in your dues. $400 or $500. Yeah. If you're not a member, so everybody here is a member, so your ticket is covered. Sure, why not? Just give your pass to someone. Okay, I brought this up the last couple of weeks. If you have not seen it, the adoption rate has actually been pretty high, but if you have not seen it, the referral program, the way it works is agent services will forward an opportunity for testimonial to your clients. And then if you will be notified if a testimonial comes in, but it won't be posted unless you go into your dashboard and click on it. So you can, if you accept it, it'll be shared automatically to Google and your bio on the Meadowtowne Realty page. So if you, yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, it's not automatic because there are assholes out there that will not give you a good review, even if you give good service. So it's automatic if you go into the dashboard and you click that you want it published, right? So that's what you got to sign up for. The clients. So you have to opt into the program. There's been a couple of emails sent out. If you opt in, agent services, so Christina and Duani, when you have a transaction, they will forward a link to your clients. If your clients submit a testimonial, then you will be notified. So you can read it. If it's a 4 or 5-star review, you can automatically share it to Google and the Meadowtowne Realty website. That was my understanding. I think this is different, but I don't think so, but I'll have to confirm that. Yeah. Yeah, so you really don't have to do anything except sign into your dashboard. So the email was sent out. I know there was at least 2 emails sent out in the last 2 weeks, so you did get it? No. Okay. Meadowtowne Golf Days coming up June 24th. Once again, it's all proceeds are going to the Georgetown Hospice. And the last thing, I think everybody saw an email come from Alex last week that was a little bit confusing about, we'll go back to that after, about TRESA training. So I actually didn't realize this myself. The mandatory TRESA training pops up in your continuing education on RICO. And apparently almost nobody has done it, including myself. I thought that it was due when your RICO license renews. It's not, it's due as soon as possible. So everybody has to do it. Yes. Then they change their mind because we followed up with them the same day and they said it's mandatory now. So yeah, they want it done. I'm not sure who you spoke with then, or I'm not sure who I spoke with, but I am telling you to do it now. So it doesn't matter who you spoke with, do it now because they are getting on our case about it. And I don't know if you just spoke to somebody at a desk, but they are contacting us saying not enough people are doing it. So no matter what you hear from Rico, I am telling you to do it now. I'm glad you asked. I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so do it by the end of May. Email Colleen once it's done because Rico has not given us a list of who has done it and who has not, but they are following up more often than I would like. Fair? Yeah. It will be now. I'll show you. Oh, maybe. I'll show you where it is. Yeah, not everybody does. But based on the number of phone calls that I got last week, not very many people know where it is. Yeah. So you're going to log into your My Web on Rico. You're going to click on the dashboard. It's going to take you to where you can scroll down to education. You click on continuing education. And then you can see down at the bottom here for recent activity. Mine progress is 0 still, but mandatory 2024 update course. Sometimes you find like the default browser on Mac is Safari, and sometimes you need to use Chrome. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it opens the next section.
Yeah.
So what I found when I did the survey, it didn't submit it, it didn't do anything, and it wouldn't let me go to the next one. So I closed it, opened it the next day, and the last one was black, so I could go into it, but the survey still was not checked off.
Huh.
I did.
It's a great system. And it'll take you to this page here, which is what my page looked like as of Saturday. 0% still. Okay, I'm going to go back here because I skipped something. The huddle schedule next week is a long weekend, so there's no huddle next Monday. The following Monday, I am out of town, so there will be no huddle here, but you're welcome to join in to Milton or Georgetown. Georgetown does it live and virtual, so they do a hybrid one. Milton is only virtual. I'm the last holdout that refuses to do it virtually. So sorry, Mary. Yeah. I'm not going to Jamaica. I'm going to PEI. Yeah. Little potato tour. Okay. Stats. Showings down 6% in Georgetown, Mississauga, and Georgetown, Milton, Mississauga. Days on market also increased, and we're seeing inventory start to build up a little bit. You'll see it in our months of inventory in a minute. In Mississauga, showings were down 10%. Interestingly enough, sales rebounded. So even though we had more showings and a few more listings, sales went up. So we'll get to that in a second here. Halton Hills had another big week. They doubled their sales volume over the last week. So they, again, just like all year, seem to be doing the opposite of what every market around them does. When everyone goes down, they go up. And when they go up, everyone else goes down, typically. The biggest change that I saw last week was that there's an increase in properties selling under asking price. So what I've noticed, not in all markets, but the offer dates seem to be coming, and either offers are not being submitted or offers are not being accepted. So over the last 7 to 10 days, I've noticed that there's more listings with offer dates that are not being reported as sold afterwards. So you guys would be able to speak to that a little bit more than me. In Mississauga, there was an increase of 14 units, both in condo and freehold. So it was a good week compared to the week before. It was a big bounce. 110 units is where we were 2 weeks ago as well. However, just keep in mind the same week last year, there was 159 sales. So we're still down year over year for April and month to date for May. Niagara, 12% increase in showings, but also a 12% decrease in sales volume. So there's more activity in Niagara region, and there's fewer listings, but there's also fewer sales. So market has slowed there a little bit as well, which we will see in the months of inventory right now. I didn't see any markets that had a decrease in months of inventory for the first time this year. Usually there's a little bit of volatility where some go up, some go down. This last week, everything either stayed the same or went up, and we saw a few markets cross into the balanced market territory. Toronto condos are still sellers market. Peel condos, again, still sellers market, but an increase of 0.3 months of inventory in Mississauga. Burlington and Milton, still tight inventory for condos, but Oakville crossed that 4 months of inventory threshold. So condos in Oakville are now right on that cusp of a balanced market, not so much a seller's market. Same with condos in Hamilton. So Niagara has been fairly balanced most of the year, except for those 3 weeks where it dipped under, 3-4 weeks where it dipped under 4 months. Hamilton just crept across 4 months last week. Freeholds, again, small increases everywhere, but still seller's market for all of them. Oh. You guys share ringtones? Brampton and Mississauga also very small increases, but they're both still under 3 months of inventory. Burlington, Milton, Oakville, all tight markets for freehold still. Burlington is the last holdout under 2 months of inventory, but everywhere is still seller's market. Halton Hills is just about to creep above 3 months of inventory. And you can see Niagara just crossed, they had the largest increase. They increased by half a month of inventory just in the last week. So they've crossed that threshold into the balanced market. So they were one of those three, but the first freehold market to cross into balance. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to add or something that they're seeing? We mentioned that offer dates seem to be coming, not often, but I've saw a few of them in the last couple of weeks that that stuff is not being accepted. Are you guys seeing the same thing? You did? Yeah. On one of your listings? Yeah. 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 Are you giving them the 24-hour irrevocable? Well, that's, yeah.
And my client was kind of upset that he felt that we were bullying him.
Yeah. What was the reason? Was it like in the state? Yeah. So
Want to file a duty if your client were out of town.
even then, that's not even a reason anymore, right? We all have electronic signatures. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it happened.
Yeah.
Under Stephen put a bunch of stuff in that he wanted. And I had to rewrite the offer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. 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 I mean, you're never going to make everybody happy, but we all know that people ask for 24, 48 hours to leverage any offers they receive, unless it's a power of sale or estate sale or something, or power of attorney. But I would usually just explain that to my client, if it was the buyer, that this is why they're doing it. We don't have to give them that much time, nor should we. And some people will understand and some won't.
We wanted 24 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, what's your point?
Yeah. I don't represent you or your client. Yeah. All right. Okay. So some of this stuff is going to come up. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so in terms of case studies, I don't have a lot of case studies this week, probably because I was away for most of last week. But I have a couple of scenarios that have been coming up, and I'm just want to present them out here and see how you guys would handle it. So the first one, scenario one, let's say that you have a listing that you're valuing at, let's say, $850,000. You set an offer date for this week, this Thursday, and you get 3 offers, and none of them are the 850,000. So you're getting the 3 offers. It's a pretty good indication of where the market's at. And none of those offers will increase past the top offer that you have. So you're about 25,000 under asking. Where's the duck sound? You took it. So in a scenario like this, I know not all of them are going to be the same because sometimes the seller will have already bought, sometimes they're dipping their toes in the water. But let's talk this one out a bit and let's see how you would handle it with your clients, assuming you're the listing agent. This has come up a couple times. We've talked about offer dates coming where you're either not getting an offer or you're getting offers that aren't where you want it to be. This is not always an easy conversation. I'm going to call him Brianna because she's almost never here. But how would you handle this type of conversation? Yeah. So we're at the point here where we've done that. Nobody's moving up. Maybe some of them are moving up, but 825 is still your best. Firm? Yep. Yeah. And when you have that conversation, so let's say you do that, they sign back, they don't sign back, but you're just it's clear you're not going to get the 850 that was the expectation. Yeah. 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 Mary, we haven't seen you in a while. Would you handle it the same way or would you? Mhm. Yeah. 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 Is done? Oh, oh, yes, sir. For sure. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. The next weekend you got the price you wanted? Yeah. Yeah, I think I have I have the benefit of seeing a lot of deals cross my desk because I see everything that you guys are doing. And what I would say is more often than not, like it's rarer to see Donna's scenario where they get something higher the week later, right? Usually what I end up seeing is they don't accept something and then they're kind of chasing the market down a little bit and they end up accepting a lower offer. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So January, oh, 1 second, Charles. January and February, the market was way ahead of where we were in 2023. March was somewhat balanced, but April and so far month to date in May were behind where we were. So I don't know if that's, I have a feeling it's because the spring market started 7 weeks earlier, 8 weeks earlier than what we're used to, but mhm, yeah, yeah,
You know, there was a lot of people coming back and it was waiting in the market, and I'm seeing a lot of people just again kind of waiting it out, seeing what's gonna happen, because it's kind of volatile a little bit, like we don't know what's happening. We were all expecting at least a little bit of a break.
well, based on the bet you and I had, we were not all expecting. Yeah. Charles, sorry.
I agree with, comments here about trying to sort of work in, even if they've all said this is our final stop, that, there's nothing stopping a little bit of a risk of, okay, let's counter it at 8:30 or something like
Yeah.
that. Like 8:30, you can always kind of get another 5 somehow, something, right? Is often the case, maybe, or they might, but here's a bit of an idea prior to this moment that I just presented in the last 2 weeks. It does require a little explanation with it, but anyways, what it is using the seller direction form.
Yeah.
So I've presented the CMA. I've now presented the range of expectation. The CMA does have a specific number, but then even notwithstanding the specific number that's there, I still always will discuss a range within the context of that specific number. And then that's been presented. I knew going into the listing appointment though, and before that was presented, what the seller was expecting, which is higher than what the CMA was coming in at.
Yeah.
So what I have done is I presented a seller direction form that actually says, seller is, all offers to be a minimum of that price point, that the seller was expecting, which I don't believe we probably are going to get.
Yeah.
But it says seller is willing to, no, it doesn't say well, seller is willing to accept, but seller will consider all offers higher than that price point, comma, unless otherwise agreed to by all parties.
Mhm.
That whole sentence, and I present it that way, and all those words intentionally, so that I'm acknowledging what the seller wants.
Yeah.
And I'm except here's what the CMA is telling us. And this is a situation where it's a bit of a tougher property. It's got, there's a bit to that, but so anyways, the point of all this is that, is to meet the seller what their hope is, and to go, look, I'm on board, we can do it, but here's what the report says, and this is what the data is telling us, because the CMA is based upon the comparables, it's based upon the percentage change in the market in this particular area. Like this data is reliable. It's not just, you have to have the report to refer to. You can't just kind of go only on how we feel. You have to have the feeling too, but you need the report and the data there. And then, anyways, all of that to say that the seller party, at this point, in fact, what actually happened by the end of the listing appointment is their expectation changed.
Yeah.
They went, well, so what you're really saying is this is what we should probably expect, right? And I went, well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So even now, before we have started, their expectations have changed based upon the fact that I met them with what their hope was. Yeah. And said, hey, I'd love it too, if we can do that. Because I think that's important is I think that we really solidify the relationship with the seller when we enter into their hope, as long as we do it in a manner that we are, respectful, but then also clear to say, I'm not really sure because here's what the report says, but hey, I'm on board, love it if we can. Yeah. Then now you're sort of operating as a team. You're not, they're on board, because I mean, one of the number one things that sellers get concerned with when we're a little hesitant on what we can do for a price point is, are you, do you believe, can you do this? Yeah. Right? They'll kind of direct it towards us. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, I can do that. However, here's what the data is telling us, and we need to be open to the reality of what this data is saying, which is the market data, right? I mean, again, I've shared with you guys that I use this home price index thing constantly. Yeah. And that is gold because it tells the story. Yeah. And then you can add in your character, your fun, your marketing, and we're going to exceed this 100%, but this is what the data is saying. So this leads me to another question, takes us away from this scenario, but it still can be a difficult conversation sometimes is, do you have a margin of, I'm going to call it margin of error, but let's say margin of discrepancy between when you present your CMA and home price index and you have what you think is the value, and if their number is above that, at which point you might walk away from a listing? Or I know every scenario is going to be different, but everybody here seems to invest a lot into their listing, whether it's staging, photography, drone, like media is, did you? Yeah.
It's a small part, but it's a huge market. And sometimes like sellers last minute will drop the ball on you like, hey, you know what? I want to go in a little higher.
Yeah.
But not invested
those listings. Like I've invested a lot into listings that just didn't sell.
Yeah.
Because they were unrealistic.
Yeah.
And when I get for a client that they're stubborn.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that because chase that and spend all my energy on a deal that's not gonna work out. I'm way better off chasing other things. Something else on that fall into my lap. It will.
So I know, okay, so I know every scenario is different, and I'm not saying you shouldn't take them, but does their motivation affect that at all? Like, let's say they already bought, and then you find out their expectation?
Or actually this week. And my clients are trying to push the boundaries, but they also believe everything I tell them and they trust me. So they
Yeah.
are listening to what I'm telling them and advising them. Will I try to like increase it like 10, 20 grand? Okay, maybe we could like play with those numbers. But for example, the Hannah building, I tried to sell that for a long time and we got amazing offers. But last minute, my client increased the price on it by $100,000. And I took the listing anyway, invested so much time, effort, money into
I
it,
remember that one.
and it didn't sell, and he ended up not selling it. He still has it, and he blamed me. But we had amazing offers on that day.
Yeah.
Way above what anybody else in that building was getting, at a time when he was buying on $80 for this. So I think it's, each individual is different.
Yeah.
You just gotta-
Yeah. And sometimes you want to dig a little bit deeper. I'm going to put Erin on the spot for a second. She had a listing earlier this year where she did the CMA and I forget the number. I'm going to say it was like 740, or the seller was expecting like 740. And that turned out that it was pretty close, maybe a little bit on the high side at the time of it. And then it came time to sign the listing. The market was looking good. And all of a sudden their number changed to 765. There was no market reason. It was just, they figured they needed an extra 25,000. So you want to have that conversation. Yeah. 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 So in this case, I'll get to you in a second, Donna. In this case, I think what happened was the market did improve, not 25,000, but it was still better than the original 740. But sometimes you want to uncover why their number is increasing. Is it because they spotted a beautiful home that was higher than they originally budgeted? Is it because their investments went down and now they want to recover 25,000 and they think they could just name their price, that kind of thing? Sorry, Donna.
I can do this. I can move forward with it. You just really need more.
Yeah. Yeah. Does it matter to you the area that it's in? So let's say, would you be more likely to take an overpriced listing in Streetsville than you would say in Burlington?
Obviously. Of the other agents, don't even see the look, whether it's Streetsville medical.
Oh no, I don't mean that. What I mean is you've got a 20-year history in Streetsville, right? That's where a huge chunk of your business is, that's where your farm is. Would you be more likely to be more lenient on taking a not ideal listing in your? Yeah. Yeah. So it's not a matter of having it in your, say, farm area where you want more signage. It's okay.
But one little tool that I've been paying attention to more lately, and I should forever more is the stats button, whenever we do comparables, and let's say we're gonna go with Streetsville, and the last 365 days.
My favorite button.
Great button because
Yeah.
you get the low, the high. and
Yeah.
you got the average,
Yeah.
right? And here's the greatest, here's the greatest confidence spot.
Yeah.
Greatest confidence spot is right here. So it doesn't matter if you got both faucets or, I don't, you gotta be careful the words you say, but the point of it, you can say things like, it's not about all the capital improvements of a property. This is the greatest confidence spot in this particular pocket.
Yeah.
And so whenever any buyer family is considering a decision, then they can pull up this exact same information and know that, hey, in Streetsville at, 1.4 million, if wherever that exact average is for detached, bungalow, like that's the greatest confidence spot. So is it possible someone's gonna sell for 1.6? Sure, 100%. It's possible there might be some 1.2s, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be a lot right in that midpoint, and that's not only where the consumer's greatest confidence spot, but also if an appraiser is ever doing a report, they're gonna look at the same data.
Yeah.
It's just right on, if you do a search on comparables, and then at the top, there's a tab, you just click stats.
Stratus. Yeah. I don't know yet. I'm not proficient in Realm. We will have Realm training coming up. I was hoping it would start next week. It's probably going to start in June. But there will be Realm training here. Yeah. 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 We're working on the curriculum now. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That study was in Chicago. It was 2006, and it was 6% more. So you can read it. So they talk about it. I'm sure there's been more than one study, but the one that I read was in the book Freakonomics, which was, I think, published in 2005 or 2006. And it looked at realtors in Chicago over the course of a year. And on average, realtors, if they were selling their own home, they sold for 6% more and took 10 days longer, right? Yeah. 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 We're our own, what is it? What's the expression? A person who represents himself as a lawyer is a fool. Yeah. 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 Okay. So this one, this is not a specific, come on, Brad. Okay. This is not a specific incident, but I've had two that were kind of similar to this, so I amalgamated it for the question. So I wanted to focus a little bit on difficult conversations, and I thought this was an interesting scenario because I had kind of two very similar versions. So let's assume that you have a listing coming up for which you've invested both time and money. So you've invested money for staging, photography, you put some time into CMAs, and you visit a couple times. And this client will also be purchasing a home through you when you sell. But then they're unhappy with what they're seeing. So they're unhappy with the photos. They don't like the stager. For whatever reason, they're coming up with these excuses that they want to cancel the listing. So I know we can talk about how you can refuse to cancel. You can hold them to it. I want to get just a little bit deeper into the conversation that you would have, because it's not just about the money that is invested. So aside from the fact that you've signed a contract and you can hold them to it, what kind of approach would some of you take in the early stages of this kind of of this kind of conversation. And I know it's not unique, right? So it's because there's been a couple of recent examples. Yeah. 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 Sure. Yeah. Schedule A. Yeah. So you can't ask for it back. I mean, you can ask for it back, but they're under no obligation to pay you back if it's not part of your contract. Yeah. So
And then
yeah. Yeah. So you're all correct. It's not the part of the conversation I wanted to approach though. So yeah, you can have it in there and you can recover your costs, but yeah, Ursula. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the part I wanted to get into. Thank you. So it's not just the cost, it's sometimes the objections that we're receiving are not the real reason, right? They might say it's the staging or they don't like your photographer, but you really do need to uncover something a little bit deeper sometimes. So sometimes it's in one of these cases, I feel like it was because they started to regret hiring somebody that they've been friends with for 25 years, right? So you want to start uncovering that. And these difficult conversations are essentially where a lot of your brand is made, right? So it's sometimes you want to just go a little step further before you start butting heads and talk about what's your real concern. And you can really put it in terms of you try and keep it open-ended, not a yes or no, but like just say, I don't think that this reaction that we're talking about is because of photos that were taken, which takes an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. I can redo this, right? What are you really concerned about? And keep it open-ended and try and have that deeper conversation. It might be something that's really easy to overcome, but don't let your pride get in the way of trying to uncover some of these things, because I've seen this a few times now where people have just accepted that they're going to be out the $3,000 that they've already invested, or 5,000 or 500. It doesn't matter what it is. Part of our job is really being therapists. So really have that more open conversation. And I think we've all experienced something like this. You did with Hannah. Maybe you could have never overcome it. I remember selling my parents' neighbor's place, and they freaked out about the photos. And it was just a real conversation. It turned out in that case, it really was that they just didn't like the photos, but it was not something that we needed to cancel it over. I just had to spend an extra $500 or whatever it was at the time. And then we recovered and everything was smoothed out after that. But
Thing that's in Sam's office says full-time psychologist, part-time real estate agent.
yeah. Yeah, the real estate is the second job, right? Your side hustle. Yeah. Okay. The last thing I wanted to touch on, and then I'll let you go, I promise, unless Raymond wants to say something, is Charles, this is something you and I dealt with last year and it worked out well. However, there is a rumor that is going around that you can put a clause in a Schedule A, whether it's true or not, that if the buyer breaches the contract or they can't close or they have to renegotiate, that all or part of the deposit can automatically be released from the trust account to the seller. These clauses are actually included in many contracts. And so let's assume that it's actually really well written, like Charles was when you were dealing with that property. And let's say it's really well written and the closing date arrives and the buyer is unable to close. Based on the fact that it was agreed upon in the agreement of purchase and sale, it's well written. Are we allowed to release the deposit to the seller since both the buyer and the seller agreed to that in the agreements? No? Why do you think that? Does anybody agree with Debbie? Anybody disagree? Disagree? You disagree? What do you think it is? Charles has a leg up because we went through this twice.
Closing date was extended 7 times. Okay, so at the 5-time mark, let's see, I have to think, but anyways, I think at the 3-time mark, the seller got 100, or it was only easier. And then the at the 5-time mark, I got paid before it closed. And so that was all done with statement that I created in the amendment that was very carefully worded to clarify that if the buyer continued to not close, that the first, this was a $200,000 deposit, and the first 100 would be released to the seller, and the second 100 would be released at a certain point. And I got paid while I was in Florida, by the way, and it closed about 3 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later. And
Oh.
since then,
No, go.
and it was a really creative whole situation, and since then, the entire thing has closed, including a better take back that was required, because the buyer got in a bit of trouble that they never really admitted, but we're pretty sure it's true. When they eventually did close and everybody got paid, including it finally closed in March. The original closing date was August 31st last year, but it actually, the final payment of everything was March this year.
It was a long time. Okay. You have something, Donna? Sort of. So Debbie is 100% right. Charles is mostly right. That's exactly right. So the way we would do it, so under our legislation, as Debbie said, in the event of a failed transaction or a terminated transaction or a breach transaction, funds can only be released via mutual release or court order. So no matter how well the clause is written, and Charles has written very well, you cannot clause your way around this legislation. Exactly. So the way we would handle this situation, and this is the part that Charles wasn't directly involved in, so he might not remember this part, but we were waiting for confirmation from both solicitors, right? Yeah. So in this scenario, so you have this clause, even if it's written by a lawyer, it's expertly written, it's fantastic, which means it's confusing, but if it's really well written. we will reach out to both sides of the transaction. If one of them, and in this case, it probably would have been the buyer, said that they disagreed, we will not release those funds, no matter what that clause says. So we still have to follow the legislation that we're governed by, which is court order or mutual release. It's not a guarantee, even if it's in there. So I want to say, so I've seen this come up a couple times. I've seen it. It's never needed to be exercised, except in your case, Charles. But I've seen it in a few agreements. And if you decide that you want to include this in your agreement,
But because I would say some of the good of all of it was because of sort of being patient.
Yeah.
As hard as it was and all of that, because I ultimately actually had sort of the seller, the buyer's lawyer, all in agreement to say, yeah, we're gonna pay out this commission now. And then buyer basically was surrounded by 3 people saying yes.
yeah.
And he actually even didn't fully object, but the other 3 were on board, which wasn't easy to get all that in place.
Yeah. Yeah. If the transaction doesn't close, it stays in our trust account until both parties either agree to what happens with the deposit, so that's the mutual release, or it goes to court and the court tells us what we have to do with the deposit. So it could be in the trust account for years, right? So for example, cases houses that didn't close in 2017, 2018, we're still going through the court system in 2022, 2023. So it can take 4 or 5 years. I mean, that was probably because of COVID as well, but it can take a while. Were you going to add something?